you are always here. So when one of you is running late, I get really worried.
Right. Are we okay now? We are good. All right, good, thank you. I call this meeting to order. Thank you for coming, all of you in the audience. Today's agenda, we will consider approval of minutes first. I hope all of you have had a chance to look at them. They seem to be A-okay to me.
Concur with that.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes of February 4th, 2019?
I would do that with one edit.
Okay.
At the top it says November 5th, 2018.
Oh!
And so that we make sure.
I
if
didn't
this
even
gets
catch that,
disconnected,
person,
then
thank you.
That gets fixed, but otherwise the content looks fine.
Thank you. Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you.
Staff does appreciate that y'all look at those, because even though we go through them,
actually
you know, 3 or 4
read
times a
them.
piece,
We do read them.
it's amazing the things you can miss, so we appreciate it.
Okay, we are now going to consider the certificate of appropriateness for property located on 601 East Main, COA number 2019-004.
Yes, Chairman, the applicant is listed as David Hansen. It's the 2 gentlemen who are in the back of the room for 9 Flags Coffee. They're requesting to add a 10 by 20 prefabricated outbuilding, something you'd see kind of a storage building behind your own home, all slightly different styles, on the north side of Lot 2, Block 6, commonly referred to as the 9 Flags Coffee House. They've also listed on their application that they will paint a large white star. As you are all very, very familiar with, we don't regulate paint color. It's always nice when applicants provide that so you know what the final product is going to look like. So what you are being asked to consider is the placement of a 10 by 20 portable or prefabricated outbuilding on the north side of the structure. And even though in your packet you have, there's the, up on the screen, location, front of the building, that is the proposed, and then there's the proposed actually on site. So yes, as Chairman was asking prior to the meeting if it was already in place, yes, that was a photo from just the other day. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicants are here to answer any as well. Chairman?
Okay, thank you. Yes, let's talk to the applicants.
One or both of you, whichever. Come on up.
Please state your name for the record.
David Hansen.
Hanson, thank you. Mr. Hanson, is this the second time that we have discussed an addition or a change or whatever to your property, and it's already occurred?
I don't recall what you're referring to.
Brian, am I wrong?
There was an addition of a sign
Right.
on the front.
I was thinking.
Well, I think that's when we didn't know we were in the historical district. Nobody at the city, when they were counseling me on doing everything to that building, I didn't know. So as soon as I found out,
They didn't tell you at the permit office?
they did not.
Huh. Okay. All righty. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hanson?
Well, I'm just clarifying, so the building that you're proposing is the one that's already there.
We got a good deal on it, and they said that we could bring it tomorrow if you'll take it. So that's kind of, it's not being used, but we're waiting for this today for us to go ahead and do what we need to do to make it a storage building.
Well, your building is 1950 and is non-contributing to the historic, downtown historic district. And it is built after the era of significance. However, could we request from you that any additional changes or proposals come to us first?
Yes.
Next time?
I understand, yes.
We'd appreciate it. We just don't want a pattern to be established, and You know, I do know that sometimes it's easier to say, I'm sorry, rather than to ask permission, but,
Definitely.
okay. Any other questions?
I just have one for staff. Clarify exactly what we are approving.
Thank you.
You are being asked for permission to place the building where it sits. And I was kind of wait until towards the end because it can get somewhat complicated when we talk about permitting from inspections office and HLPC. They're two separate roads. So in something like this, you are looking at the placement. If it is 10 feet away from the building, 5 feet away from the building, you are looking at, is it appropriate to place this building in this general area? Inspections is going to look at it and say, did HLPC approve it? If the answer is yes, okay, now they can proceed, and they're going to say it has to be 10 feet away from the building. So right now, it's not in compliance if it is less than 10 feet. The reason I bring that up is
It's less
because
than 10 inches,
It's,
so.
it's less than 10 feet. So to answer your question, I wanted to be very specific. You were being asked, is it okay to place this building, this portable building on the north side here? So not in the exact footprint where it sits today.
But
So
just
if you were
on
to
the
vote.
property in
Yes,
that
sir. So
general.
if you were to vote to say yes, that means that it can be placed on the north side of this building, whether it's on the western end, the eastern end. Does that kind of make sense? As you are approving its placement on the north, because that is, the back side of that building is the north facade. Because that does make a difference. If they had asked to place it on the south facade, that's the main entrance. You would
Absolutely.
probably say no to that one, because then you would be blocking the front or character defining facade, whether it's contributing or non-contributing. That's typically something you avoid. So the placement is the desired side of a building if you're going to make additions to a structure, and that's the back. Oftentimes, businesses that are on corners are kind of, they're in the hard spot because this
That's
building has
tricky.
3 frontage roads. You can see the whole thing.
Right.
So they don't really have a spot where you can hide a building.
But it is the
So does
rear
that
of
answer
the
your
building.
question?
Yes, so it's not whether there is a building or not a building, or what kind of building, it's only where the building goes.
And yes, it's also what kind of building.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Is a.
But since it's non-contributing, I guess my question is, I don't want to just make things up here. So as a non-contributing, minimum alterations of a non-contributing building, or consistency of alterations of a non-contributing, how do I wrap my brain around what I'm
You're
trying
also
to
looking
decide?
at something that it can be picked up and moved tomorrow.
Mhm.
And there's no effect on the property. This isn't something that is attached to the building.
Right.
And because it's non-contributing, so there's typically, the way you have voted in the past and guided staff to council people is there's much more leeway, and you want to place them on the backside of structures. And really, one of my big considerations is, what does it do to the property? Does it alter the property in any way?
And
I would say no in this case, because you can pick it up and move it.
And everything's concrete.
Kind of like, go this way. We aren't discussing, is it a roaster? Okay. I didn't want to give the wrong term. We're not talking about placement of that roaster because it's on wheels. It's literally in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, we could hook up a truck to it and it's gone.
Right.
So that's why you're not having to consider that one. Kind of then that next level is, well, you have to slide a jack underneath this one and pick it up and move it and it's gone, and still it's the same kind of effect, is that there's nothing left.
I guess my thing is, I don't get too hung up on non-contributing because they did that survey in 1986.
Right.
And so things could be
It could
contributing
be,
today
absolutely.
that are not
Yes.
then. So that's always,
And in that
important.
case, we would
And-
hope that it would maybe not contribute, but at least blend in with that area,
Right,
with the
right.
historic area.
So should this
Yes.
building in the future be considered contributing?
Right.
Does this
Will it,
portable affect that
right.
or not? That's the way I approach that. I would take it.
I believe, Dr. Beisel, that was actually from the updated survey.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it was?
It was listed as non-contributing in 86, and then again and I never remember where, it was 2010, 2011
Yeah.
period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Beisel and her students
Mhm.
started and then completed, and so it's in that 2010-11
Mhm.
survey.
And that was before the current renovations have happened, so. But in the future, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry if I gave you a little bit longer answer, but I was trying
That's
to,
okay.
I was trying to give you the full
Yeah.
picture. So
We want
that if it's
clarification.
approved today and then moved 10 feet over, you don't come back and say, well, hey, staff, you told us we were approving this. Yes,
Right.
within some wiggle room.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions of staff or of Mr. Hanson? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve COA 2019-004, because it does not in fact impact the historic structure and has very minimal impact upon the site.
Right. And do we don't need to add to that it should remain behind the, because that was in the thing, that it was on the
No.
north side. Okay, all right.
You answered your own question
I did.
correctly. Yes,
I
ma'am.
did indeed, I'm sorry.
That's why she's the chairwoman.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, do I hear a second?
I second, sorry.
Thank you, thank you. All in favor of okaying this COA, please state aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? State nay. All right, thank you. Now we will consider the COA for property located at 321 East Main, COA number 2019-005.
Okay, so the applicant for this one is not present today, but it's a fairly straightforward project. So hopefully I can answer any questions. As you can see, this is located downtown. It's a very narrow building, a very small storefront of what is now Yarnia. And we do have one historic, several historic photos of this one, none of which show the actual storefront, but I like this photo because of the giant sign that takes up most of the building. So that is obviously not there anymore. Okay, so here's the storefront that we're talking about, and the applicant is requesting to replace the glass front. So basically everything below the awning, leaving all of the brick in place, the awning in place. They will just be replacing the glass with double pane insulated glass, and the chrome silver parts will be black aluminum. So they're taking all that out and replacing with the same exact layout. The big difference there will be that it will be black aluminum instead of chrome. This one is listed as constructed in 1908 and contributing to the survey, by the way.
And no one could convince them to reverse their non-historic facade into, like, if you could see the photographs of those old ones.
Right, there wasn't a good one showing the facade just because they were all from above with the awning blocking it, but, yeah. So, any questions?
Any questions?
The only question I had was if it was clear or shaded, but I saw the fine print, so it's clear.
You mean the glass?
Yeah, the glass,
Okay.
to make sure it wasn't a dark color or something
Mirror
like that.
reflective
Yeah,
or
we don't want
something,
that,
yeah.
but down here, I'm gonna go with it says clear, so I'm gonna stick with clear.
There we go.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions or discussion necessary, do I hear a motion to approve COA 2019-005?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Thank you so much. All right, moving right along. Okay, we will consider the COA for property located at 113 South Lenana Street, COA number 2019-006.
All right. So this property is located in the neighborhood of Eugenia Stern Park, and it's right across the street from Stern Hoya House Museum. It's a little yellow frame building, this one right here. And then you can see it's listed on the 1906 Sanborn map, but actually it was constructed about 1882 according to the survey. And interestingly enough, it is listed as non-contributing because of, let's see, well, it doesn't say why, but it was listed as non-contributing, and staff feels now that if there were to be another survey done, it would probably be listed as contributing because of renovation to the building and its relation to Dietrich Rolfs. He used it as his studio and workshop, so historic building. And the project today, and the applicant is here for questions. As you can see, and you can actually see it from the zoomed out photo too, but there's a void between the brick skirting and the wood of the house, and it obviously lets moisture and all sorts of things in. So what he's proposing is using this metal flashing, inserting it under the siding, and he actually brought props today, so he'll be able to show you exactly what he's talking about. And this, I love this, it's so helpful with the, showing exactly what it'll be. But it'll just go over that void and direct water away from the structure.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Could we have Wally come up and do his show and tell?
Since he brought all this stuff.
I know. We want to be educated.
Yeah, maybe that didn't have the appropriateness before, because before Thomas got this thing, it had some kind of metal
Oh, yeah.
siding, because that's why the brick is out so far from the house.
Is that-
Because the
There was-
profile of that came out,
Mhm.
and it was kind of a straight shot.
This was a perfect example of a building that did not get the Historic Preservation Award because it was beat out by another property that did even more. But Thomas Tracy, the owner, did phenomenal work. It had metal siding around the whole thing. He pulled it off. There was a lot of rotten wood. Did you do any of the wood after you pulled off the siding, or was that part of it?
No, Tootal and I on the north side shaped wood to stop the leak, and completely did that side above that little out.
He had some of this lumber milled to match the dimensions. He had the on the back part, what is it, those three windows together?
Mhm.
That was all completely rotten and destroyed. I mean, he did a lot of work to restore this, used a THC rendering, found a door that fit to the front. The railing was all different on the very front of the building. So Thomas
They
did.
had those bricks around the
he
front,
did, it had that
the
raised-
porch, yeah.
The door came off
Yeah.
of Ace Grupel's house over there on Houston Street. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why the building is listed as not contributing, is it was not contributing when Thomas acquired it.
Yeah.
And the back has been altered from its original, but the front has been restored largely to the way it should have been.
That's one that
It's
National
a sweet
Register
house.
nomination can get revised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Wally came and asked about this, I said, you did a great job with your show and tell last time. With a case like this, you're gonna have to do it again, because I don't think anyone's gonna get it, and so sure enough, he was
Yeah,
able to-
we've already explored the possibility of adding to the brick. Met with Kenny Glass, but we still weren't getting it. We cut down. If we did another layer and we're able to secure it, there's a slight cant to the brick. Closer to that, get a smaller profile of flashing, but it's just not practical in terms of factoring in the metalwork and the brickwork. When this is essentially gonna do that, it's gonna take a little bit of time to do that, because the profile from the brick up changes all the way around the building. So we couldn't even go, this is piece one, piece two, and have that pre-made. We're just gonna have to map probably one side at a time and try to get that done.
So will this be one for each side, one long piece?
Well, they
as
only come in
opposed to
10-foot
short-
pieces.
Oh, they're not that short.
Right. But this is paint grade, and that's one reason we chose this, is because to hide this some more, once this is done, we could come back and do a color on it to, tone that down so it won't stick out so much.
Yeah.
So the question I had, because it wasn't clear in here, but staff mentioned that you're actually going to put the upper piece behind the wood, as opposed to in front as shown in this picture? Is that correct?
Well, we're still torn with the idea. What happened is, there's been so much water incursion in the house and everything, but most of the beams are in good place. But that void right there, that good 2-inch drop right there, we want to fur some treated wood or something to the underside of that to get the wood profile down, so that we'll have some more substance for this thing, for one. And I don't think there's going to be enough. If we use hardy plank or something, there might be, but once we snug this thing up, say under the bottom course is what we're doing. We're not trying to get this lap siding is not that forgiving to create a space on there, so it's probably going to be what you see is right there, and that's why another reason we chose the paint grade is to try to.
It looks like that would be the wisest choice.
Yeah, it's problematic too because a lot of that's the original trim and corner trim and stuff. So that's we may just use a jam cutter and do something where we can slide that behind it rather than cut the wood.
And will the bottom part going over the brick, will it have a wee bit of a slant so that
Well,
water will?
we don't know
won't
because
puddle?
on the crimping machine you can influence this to a certain degree.
Right.
And it's going to be the same, probably, let's say 4 degrees or something. It's not much, that we might get away with doing that. But we're not, we've played with this enough that we're not concerned. This will hide and be enough of a drop that if this doesn't make contact exactly with that outside brick, we can come back to some kind of polymer or something just to seal that up. It's not going to have any move. We're not going to have to shim it or anything like that.
But you're going to have long enough pieces that, I think what she's asking is, rain comes down on top there, and
Right.
even if it's sitting a
Yeah.
bit on the metal,
Yeah.
it's not going to actually be leaking around it to pool on the brick underneath it.
No.
Yeah, I was just
No.
wondering if it'd have a little bit of a slant, like a porch has a slant, just so that
Right.
the water would go off.
Well, like I say, until we start messing with it,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't ask him to put any kind of crimp in that. You know, we're going to start with piece number 1 and kind of fine tune that because that's going to dictate probably what we're going to do most of the way around the building. Even though we have to change, this profile drops down, you know, about 1.5 inches in places, and sometimes on the same 10-foot section. But because of the metal deal, we can score it and do a clean cut and slide it in place. So we think that'll solve it. We got to do something.
Right.
That's causing all kinds of problems. That's a unique building because of when it was built. That's dimensional timber in it, but there's no vapor barrier. There's no insulation in it.
Right.
So particularly on the north side, that's the reason this is the other thing I want to talk about. We're having a major wood trauma. It doesn't get enough sunshine on the north side. Plus some of the siding that they had, replacement siding they did was cypress. And I found out the hard way too on that. You can't expose cypress outside, you can't put anything on it in terms of siding. That's why the houses in Louisiana, you know, are just grayed out and, you know, black in places. Stuff not because they can't afford paint, it's because it has to breathe all the way back to front. And it ages and it doesn't rot, but you can't stop it on one side of it. So he showed me that he was proud of his cypress before, but now we're having problems with it. You know, and maybe if we had the vapor barrier in front of that framing, like the 30-weight felt tar paper or something, that wouldn't have happened, but that's what we're dealing with. And that's brings us to sample number 2. This profile here duplicates the same spacing as the siding on the house. And we've got issues on the front. That's the lowest part of the house with all the rain and everything. And the high covered porch, we're decided that we're gonna do just a low profile flashing because you got standing water on the porch. But because of the brick skirting, the foliage, everything there, we've got lots of termite damage. So, that and in some other places where we could cut something, take that out and lay something back, I'd really like to do something where we're done. You know, it's not gonna do anything to it from there on out. And, you know, you'd have to go up here and do that to make sure that you aren't looking at wood. Now, a lot of the hardy plank that they make is textured to look like wood. Of course, you put enough of it up there, it doesn't. But the smooth siding does. So,
Wally, let me ask, so they have a better idea. Are you, I mean, I know the answer, but are you proposing to replace the entire north facade with that? Or
No.
select pieces? Is it only at the top? only at
select
the
it,
bottom?
select. Now, the bottom, we're not, it's not as complicated because, like siding today, any siding, 117, 116, the profiles are the same. The roll siding's my favorite. But what they've done is the lumber industry, all the roll siding, if you put it up against the antique siding, the original siding, it's 1/4 of an inch shorter, the profile. It's two things. One, it's, you know, more money. You can run more siding, but on the other side, it's practicality because they're running out of wood. And by that 1/4 inch, they get more siding run, you know, on that. And carpenter-wise, we don't know how long, you know, some of them we can't get anymore. And we have to go down to Lufkin and they search through the cutting dies that they have. And I have found 2 others that I couldn't order it from anywhere, but they said if you'll run so many 100 feet, we'll do this for you. So that can still be done. And the advantage of that is to having the full profile, but it costs more money than buying it at the lumber yard.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say, if you start off at a bottom course and come up to a certain point, either if the siding's shorter or it's something different, that's easier to do and come up and meet that, and everything looks uniform and perfect. So.
I know so much about that rock. I have it on all 3 of my houses right now, right at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, now I'll tell you this for siding replacement, and this is old school. If you get a piece of siding, a lot of the painters still do this. You can get copper tox and paint it, and it turns it into womanized wood.
Right.
And then, rather than do that, go ahead and prime that back side. You know, just do it, and it'll be up there for a while. So.
Not long enough.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, I tell you, we all are interested in saving and preserving every house that we still have left. So, are there any more questions? Or, go ahead, Perky.
I'm trying to think, I don't have questions per se, I'll have one for staff, but I don't think I have for Wally. I appreciate you bringing this
Yes,
up.
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I do have one. Since you opened the painting door in here, would you be painting the metal flashing, just the upper part where it's coming down, the upper
That's a good
part
question.
White, so that,
I'm
what
gonna
about-
use my sample sheet probably and cut that in half.
Mhm.
And see that, because on one hand, we could duplicate the color of the siding
Mhm. Mhm.
down to that point.
Mhm.
But then Thomas also suggested, well, what should we do? Should we do a terracotta thing on the bottom, do a two-tone thing, you know, to blend in with the brick deal? I mean,
Those ones.
big question mark, I don't know.
Right,
Uh,
and I'm just
It's one of those things that you kind of.
My gut is we don't do painting on anything. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't manage painting, so, you know,
Right.
and it goes that, but I think.
Well, it needs
But
to,
it
it
is
needs to
good
blend in and
well,
complement
that's
it, you know.
right, yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
certainly, if you paint it, will blend in much more, regardless of whether you go
Right.
single tone or two tone. It's
You,
gonna
Right.
be,
you do discuss painting in terms of painting unpainted surfaces,
Yes,
so,
yeah, and
yes.
this would be
You know,
unpainted.
you
yeah.
wouldn't necessarily give the guidance to him, hey, you can only paint it purple.
Right.
Right.
But if you said, yes, Wally, we think it should be painted, well, then that gives him the leeway to do whatever color
Right.
scheme he
Yeah,
and the owner come
exactly.
up
And
with.
bringing down the body, the color of the body of the house, you know, right across that, it might
I think-
help from a distance to blend
I
it
think
in.
from a distance, your eye, even if the part, the
Right, even if
horizontal
you
over
left the
brick
other, yeah.
weather and stuff, having the upper,
Mhm.
I think, I was driving by it over the weekend, kinda going, okay, how would I visualize that?
Right.
And if you don't see the upper part, you know, it messes with your eye, and you don't see
Yeah,
that.
it might sort of give the illusion that the house is sort of floating above the brick.
Well, it already is.
Well, I know.
say, and when
I
you
know
drive,
in
when you drive by right
reality
now,
it
you
is.
can see that
We
gap
could
along the
glue
whole
Right,
side.
mirrors.
so.
right.
Along that
I
top.
like that.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're getting to another world of art.
All right.
You know,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I would, you know,
But yeah,
normally I
bringing
stay
the
away from.
color of the house
painting.
down.
Yeah.
Bringing that down, at least to that, I could go either way on the horizontal, the brick section.
Right.
But that upper part, having that, so it brings that visual down to meet the brick, I
Mhm.
think. Cause it really does look a little odd right now, the way
It
it
does.
is with the,
Yeah.
that.
The hole.
And of course, I just think of snakes going in there and go, yeah, you want them out. I don't want snake perfect, but it'd
Yeah.
be a lot happier if I have to walk around.
Well, we found one treasure and there was a little wooden box that had the cast brass attachments to the original clawfoot tub, I guess, that was in that house at one time. And one of them was, you know, brass clamshell, which probably holds soap, but the other things, nobody has been able to figure out what they went to. I don't know, maybe a deal to set your bourbon or absinthe or something, I don't know. But,
Maybe that's why they were under the house,
Yeah.
the plumber just chunked them
Well,
out there.
yeah. Anyway, Thomas graciously gave them to me, and over at the Boss Light, some of that's on this view box that I put up there. So,
It became art.
yep. But, so what do y'all think?
Well, I have a question for staff for this part.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And Hannah pointed out to me just a second ago that I failed to include that part in your packet. So it is part of the request.
Okay.
I was wondering because there was
I
nothing
know,
on there.
I apologize for that. It was applied for. I
Okay.
just left it out of your packets when we were putting that together.
Okay,
Um,
that,
I thought I just missed something.
yeah, me too.
No, that
Makes us
was
feel
on
much
me.
better.
So was that your question?
That was gonna be my
I
question.
thought it was.
Because if it wasn't in there.
That's why I hopped up when she pointed that out to me. I went, dang it. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that makes us feel much better. All right.
Well, that's one.
Do I hear a motion to consider the approval of COA number 2019-006?
I'll make the motion that we approve it with the, you know, caveat that the side, repair of selected siding should be added in there.
Oh, thank you, that's good. Do I hear a second? Second?
And is the part that we didn't see also have the painting of the siding, the painting of the flashing or that, or does not?
it was the using the hardy or non-wood material.
Got you.
In select areas. And when Wally and I were in my office discussing it, we went into such great detail that well, sure they know about it. It was in here. Just like I forgot to ask him if he was attaching it to the siding or to the brick or tucking it under. I assumed I knew the answer, but I realized I never actually had asked. So that's why we brought that for you.
No,
Okay.
'cause this is a fabulous structure that's had
Oh,
great
yes.
work. And
Yes, yes.
This is a.
And it needs to be preserved in every way,
Yeah, this
yes.
is, you know, water damage.
Oh, water's the enemy.
And these are pretty minimal since you already made a motion, even though you haven't passed. These are fairly minimal alterations. They're big, don't get me wrong, but they're done in a minimalistic way,
Right.
as little change as possible.
Okay, we've had a motion, we've had a second. All in favor, state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you. All righty. And we do appreciate the show and tell.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, we need to see the materials. And it helps, so
Yeah.
thank you very much. And that's the meeting for this time. We're adjourned. I have rock caused from water splashing. Oh my gosh. In like 7 different places.
Well, this year, it will be the year of rock.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, absolutely.